Now, I found that people, by and large, suffer from something I have coined the term difference anxiety. Difference anxiety is like, I'm anxious, I'm different from you. Could be gender different, religious difference, ethnic difference, racial difference, difference of whatever kind. If I feel that we are different, then I feel a little anxious, I feel a little uncomfortable. This is I call difference anxiety. So I started studying where this difference anxiety comes from, and I found that it can either be from superiority or inferiority. So in history, those who felt they are superior to others, to resolve their difference anxiety, they would either genocide them, get rid of them, because if you genocide people, there are no different people left, or turn them to slaves, to marginalize them, or colonize them and say, we're going to civilize you and make you like us, or we'll convert you. Those are examples of difference anxiety from superiority complex, and they have led to a lot of problems. Then there are difference anxieties also from inferiority complex. Somebody feels that, I have to be like them. I'm inferior, I have to be like them. Good example is when I go to Delhi, the servant in my mother's house, I go to their kids and I say namaste, and the servant says, Saabko, good morning bolo. So he's got this difference anxiety from an inferiority complex. And he tells my mother, most important benefit he wants is that his daughters should go to a school where they'll wear a Western dress, and the son should go to school where they'll tie. These are the complexes, because there's a certain standard of legitimacy, what it takes to be progressive, what it takes to be, upper class. Language is a part of it, dress, aesthetics, all these creams to become white in India, very popular. This sort of is all part of difference anxiety from inferiority complex. So, the next major concept I'm going to introduce from the book is the concept of Western universalism. Western universalism. Western universalism means the West's history, which is different from other people, Chinese history or Arab history or Indian history. The West's history, which resulted in Western thought, Western religious ideas, Western values, Western aesthetics, Western ideas of right and wrong, Western ways, that became the universal standard for everybody because of West power, because of colonial power, because West expanded, language expanded from the West, Western institutions expanded, job opportunities, media, all of that, means that the Western thought and Western point of view got installed and downloaded and into the minds of people everywhere. So the West's ideas became universal. As opposed to, say, China, if China had taken over the world, then Chinese universalism would have become the universalism. Or let's say Islam were taking over the whole world, everybody becomes Muslim, then there would be an Islamic universalism. Everybody would be studying, we would not have any other point of view, this would be all we know. If Hitler had won the war, then there would be a certain, German supremacy kind of universalism. So one universalism predominates, not based on superiority, but based on power. This is something important to understand. It's based on power, not superiority. And this idea of competing universalisms crystallized when, 10 years ago I was invited to give a talk at the Indian Institute of Sciences in Bangalore. And the talk was, where is India in the clash of civilizations? So now the famous clash of civilizations that the phrase was coined in the 90s, is about West versus Islam versus China. They each are claiming world, dominance. They want to create world dominance. Each claims a universalism. There is obviously a Western universalism. There is also an Islamic universalism. They believe they have an answer to every situation. Not only religion, your relationship with God, but family life, how it should be, society, how it should be, money, finance, business, all the politics, everything is defined in a certain code. And the Chinese are projecting an idea called Confucian universalism. Confucian universalism. And When I was explaining Confucian universalism, one smart aleck Indian make a joke out of it, said, yeah, but we have confusion in universalism, meaning we are confused people. But that's just a joke. Confucian universalism is being now discussed as a Chinese alternative to Western universalism. They have Confucian human rights, Confucian idea of science and technology, Confucian thought, and they are saying when we develop science, technology, modernity, we are not westernizing because we are doing it in accordance with the Chinese ways. Yeah? And Japan became very technologically sophisticated, but did not become westernized in its culture. It did not lose that. They remained Japanese, but very technologically sophisticated. Indians are very confused about this. Indians say, the choice is, do I remain Indian civilized according to Indian civilization, or do I get modern? As if there is no Indian way of being modern. You follow? So often they ask you, are you dharmic or are you modern? To them, the way you can advance into modernity is only through westernization. So they have given the West the universal claim of modernity, as if there is no other approach to modernity. Chinese, I give them credit, have said there is also a Chinese alternative way of modernity. So just so Western modernity is one kind, Chinese modernity is another kind. So the question I have to answer in this talk 10 years ago was, is there an Indian approach to modernity also, which is very deeply Indian according to Dharma principles. But we believe, according to that, we would have science, we would have technology, we would have medicine, we would have human rights, we would have social, political progress, we would have all these things that modernity has without giving up Dharma, in fact, based on Dharma itself. And because in the Dharma we have separated Shruti and Smriti, so we can advance more so than the biblical religions and the Abrahamic religions because they don't have separation of Shruti and Smriti. They've collapsed them into one book. So one book contains your Shruti, Smriti, and Itihas, Puranas, everything combined as one book, and that book is final and frozen, can't be changed, you have a very hard time advancing. This is why in the West you need reformation, you need wars, you need a huge calamity to get out of that box. Whereas in our case, Shruti is eternal, but Smriti keeps changing. Smriti is historical, what changes with the time and place. So we can have an American Hindu Smriti on, adapting Dharma for American life. We can have a Smriti for time and place. In fact, Manu Smriti says that this Smriti has to be rewritten for every time and place. It is not one permanent book. You don't memorize it and turn it into fixed canon or dogma. I explain that in a lot of detail. So because we kept Shruti and Smriti separate, it is therefore for us very easy and even necessary and required of us to keep evolving and adapting with the times. So having Dharma modernity is not a very wrong idea at all. It is a very natural idea for us. And we should be investing in this kind of investigative work to create Dharma modernity paradigm and see what the youth needs, what society needs today, what are the issues facing today, and come up with what is a Dharma, what would the Dharmic Acharyas and Rishis do about this circumstance, rather than parroting what was done by them in the past. We have to apply those methodologies of thinking and reasoning for today's circumstance. So this business of where is India in the clash of civilizations means we acknowledge that there are three major universalisms that are each competing for world dominance. India will either have to claim its own alternative dharmic view that requires to be appreciated and respected, or India will be digested, broken up into some part will become Islamized and become part of Sufism and Islam, some will become Christianized and westernized, secularized, and so on. And my previous book, the one before this called Breaking India, talks about that scenario as a possible scenario of India being gobbled up by different foreign nexuses. But in this book, I want to explain what would an Indian response to Western universalism consist of. Because people say, well, okay, you're defending the dharmic civilization, but what is distinct about it? Unless you can define what is distinct about it, you have not figured out why you want to protect it. If a kid asks you, why you want to protect this culture, but if everything is same, what's the problem? In fact, I was at a conference by... Thanks. So the choices we have are being digested or being different. These are the two. India is at the crossroads. Dharma is at the crossroads. People are so delighted that everybody is appropriating and copying Dharma. We must be good because everybody is copying it. And I'm saying, have you understood digestion? Yeah? Have you understood digestion? Because flattery and praising, but then trying to remap it, appropriate it, Christianize it and Westernize it and forget the sources. That is the topic of my next book, which will be called U-turn theory. U-turn theory is how Westerners come, they praise, they study, they even get a Hindu name, they get initiated. Then some of them go into the Deepak Chopra Oprah mode, where they say everything is saying all spirituality, it's all spiritual, everything is this, you could be that way, that way. They kind of decontextualize, remove the Dharma, remove the Hinduism, remove the Indian sources. That is stage 2. Then some other followers come along, they take that and put it into Christianity. You have Christian yoga, or they put it into science. You have neuroscience, cognitive science. You have John Kabat-Zinn in Massachusetts who took Vipassana and he calls it mindfulness meditation and he's got patents on it. You have Stephen LaBerge who took Yoga Nidra and he called it lucid dreaming. Lucid dreaming, Stanford guy. And he's created a lucid dreaming institute, a lot of patents, and it's considered his original discovery, getting a lot of medical grants as a big breakthrough on mind science, you know. You've got Herb Benson in Harvard, who took transcendental meditation, removed Om and put in one. He says wherever they're saying Om, you say one, one, one. It sounds similar. And you remove all this yucky Hindu stuff, he said, and he called it relaxation response, trademarked it, and made a huge career at Harvard. So these are all examples, and I'm writing a whole U-turn theory book on how our tradition has been digested and Christianized and de-Indianized, removed from the sources. And at the same time, there is this negativity towards us, what I call caste, cows and curry hatred. Your Professor Wendy Doniger at University of Chicago being one of the many centers doing this, all the bias and those kind of negative scholarship. And then the U-turn, final stage, is the most tragic. This U-turned, revised, distorted knowledge gets re-exported to India, and Indians love it. Indians love it. So this whole, I explain how the Aryan theory was a result of Indologists figuring out things, keeping what they needed, digesting it for themselves as Sanskrit and Vedas, and Aryan is ours, you know, the Westerners, and rejecting and putting negative things on Indians. And then they re-export it to India, and Indians believe in it. And now you have very fancy gurus like Andrew Cohen, who was a disciple of some New Age type Hindu called Papaji, and Papaji was a disciple of Raman Maharshi, like that. So this Andrew Cohen becomes a big star all over India. You go around, these middle class people who don't want to touch anything that sounds like Hinduism, but Andrew Cohen is not teaching them meditation. Andrew Cohen is teaching them non-dualism, but this is Christian non-dualism or Jewish non-dualism or some kind of universal non-dualism. So this is the U-turn. U-turn, which we'll be talking about next book, we'll explain in detail with many examples of how this digestion happens through stages, very, very gradual stages. And so a lot of people are very excited that we are getting digested because they're taking a very short-term view of what is actually going on. Yeah? Thank you very much for listening, and I'll take questions. Maybe Western Universalism ate up all kind of people. They ate up pagans also, and Native Americans also. They colonized blacks also. It's not like they only did it from us. They took over many others. But how they did it is irrelevant. The point is they're knocking at my door and they like to get me. That's what matters. Now, the real question you asked is, if humanity is to live as one, we need a coexistence architecture. We need an open architecture where all civilizations and cultures and diversity can coexist. The Western universalism does not have a track record of diversity surviving. For a little while, yes, but eventually, after a certain amount of time goes by, their language is gone, destroyed, their dress and lifestyle is destroyed, it all gets digested into Western universalism. You just have to look at the past. India, on the other hand, has a very long history of a universalism which respects the diversity of others, because when they come, they do not, the Syrian Christians did not stop being Syrian Christians, or Zoroastrians did not stop being Zoroastrians, the people of different languages and different kind of traditions did not stop. Now you have to ask, why is it, this is a question that all of you, I have answered in this book, but homework assignment I'm giving you, you should read the book to answer this question. Why is it that when there is change in Western religion, the previous one has to be destroyed for the next one to be valid? Yeah? Like when you install Windows 8, then they have to uninstall Windows 7. Yeah? They can't have both running. Whereas, we may have a rat temple from way back, nobody has gone and said you must convert and get rid of that and upgrade to the next release. So we can have people doing Tantra, we can have people doing Advaita, we can have somebody Bhakti of one and somebody Bhakti of another. We have people of many strata, many historical times, old faiths, new faiths, newer faiths, newer faiths, and yet they are all coexisting. Why is it that in our case, for the new release to be valid, they don't want you to uninstall the previous release? That can also live in you. Very interesting. Very interesting. Even in the same family, you may be practicing something which is kind of a new kind of a thing that is evolved in our dharma, and your mother may be practicing something else, your grandmother may be practicing something else. Nobody is going to say that you make everything uniform and bring it all in line. One. This is a very important question answered philosophically, why for the other side it is necessary to have this uniformity, one, no diversity of views allowed. Why can't I have an Ishta Devta of this kind, that kind, that kind in those religions? Even among themselves. Why isn't there, like we have so many unified temples like this one, where so many Devatas, why couldn't you put Mary and then put something about the Kaaba and then put some Jesus, Star of David? And even among the Abrahamic religions, why couldn't you have a unified house of worship? You can't. There is a philosophical reason why the validity of X, the legitimacy of X, requires falsifying Y. You have to falsify Y, otherwise you're not legitimate. This is not an easy, it's not that they're bad guys. This is a requirement by edict. Requirement. You must understand it very detailed. So pluralism and multiculturalism within Western universalism is a facade. Within the Western secularism, you can tolerate others. Tolerance is an insult. Tolerance means you're no good, but I'll put up with you. You're going to hell, but you know what, I'll put up with you. It's an insult if somebody says, I'll tolerate you to have dinner next to me. Sit next to me and you can eat dinner, I'll tolerate you. What an insult. You'll say, what's wrong with me? Why you have to tolerate me? Our term is mutual respect. Mutual respect for difference is a very different concept than tolerance. When you ask a Christian, what is your policy on pluralism? What is your policy on those who are not Christians, who are doing something different? And they will say with great pride and say, oh, we have a policy of tolerance. They'll say that. You say, yeah, but in your office, would you like someone to say, I tolerate you next to me? In your house, suppose your spouse says, I tolerate you in the house. It's an insult. It's an insult. I have many stories I give you some stories very interesting. I was invited to a major university in California starting a world religions center, and they wanted a member of each religion to come, and they wanted to declare peace and harmony and have dialogues. This was in the 1990s. So they put me on the board of advisors as the Hindu, and when they were launching this event, this place, all the dean came and vice chancellor and provost, all these guys were there. So they were all giving speeches. And they had drafted a resolution that all these religions that are represented hereby pledge to have tolerance towards each other. So when it was my turn, I said, I proposed. I was the only guy who actually disagreed. They all agreed and they all clapped. I said that I would like to request one change, remove the word tolerance and put in the word mutual respect. I said the difference is, if I respect you are legitimate. If I merely tolerate you, I feel you are no good, you are evil, you are going to hell, but I'll put up with you. And I want mutual respect. Now this created a big stir. After this, I had to leave for personal reason. I came back home. I got a call from this lady who was head of this whole organization. She called me and she said, Rajiv, you really created a big commotion. I said, what did I do? He said, you asked for this mutual respect. Now they're all debating whether we can do it or not. So I went and told this to Swami Dayananda Saraswati, Arshavidya Gurukulam. Many of you probably know him. He said, that's a good idea. We should want mutual respect. So then, year 2000 was the United Nations declared a Millennium Summit. Some of you might remember. All the leaders of all the world religions were invited by the United Nations. Baba Jain was head of that group. And under Kofi Annan, they were going to declare world peace and all the religions will have harmony and whatnot. And this millennium will be the millennium of peace. That's what's going to happen. So there was a resolution which had been drafted, and in the resolution it said that we all declare tolerance for each other. So Swami Dayananda Saraswati, since everybody had to approve, he crossed out and put mutual respect. And then the Vatican guy, when he would get it, he would cross it out and put tolerance. And this went on. And New York Times reported that there is a serious risk, there's a deadlock of language, some technical language, people are quibbling, they didn't give details. And therefore there's a real risk that the summit may collapse without a resolution, and it will be a big embarrassment for United Nations. So this went on, and they kept putting pressure on Swamiji. Swamiji dug his heels and said, no, I want mutual respect. Tolerance is not good enough. So at the 11th hour, the Vatican blinked and they passed the resolution with mutual respect. And everybody thought, wow, which is very great. But the stories didn't end there. About a month later, after everybody's gone back to their home, the Vatican issues a clarification, official. And the head of the Vatican delegation was Cardinal Ratzinger, who later became Pope Benedict, the current Pope. So it's not a small fry. He was a big shot even then. He was head of Vatican's external affairs, anything to do with the outside world, interfaith and whatever. He's the head of that. Then he later became Pope, and they changed his name to Pope Benedict. He was called Cardinal Ratzinger. He's the one. So he's the one who ultimately signed, and he's the one who then issued a clarification a month later. Clarification was that there are certain aspects of all religions we can respect, but ultimate salvation can only be done through the church. Which means, going back to the Nicene Creed, the Christian good news of the Savior is the only way to save. Others can take you from kindergarten to 5th grade to 10th grade, high school, but if you really want to go to the highest level, the PhD level, the ultimate level of being saved, you have to come through us. So they had to sign, but then they had to clarify what they mean by respect and to qualified respect. And then came 9/11 in 2001. And after 9/11, the Muslims in US were suddenly very shaken up because there were a lot of attacks on them. Suddenly there was this Hindu-Muslim bye-bye going on. Muslims very interested there, we all one and all that. Suddenly. So I was invited by some people in Dallas to speak on all this religious stuff and all, harmony. And a radio station which was owned by a Pakistani, South Asian radio station, they interviewed me, and then they had callers calling with questions. So I explained mutual respect. I believe in mutual respect, not tolerance. So this lady calls. Later I was told she's a well-known activist, Pakistani activist, big community leader in Dallas. At the time I didn't know who she is. So she calls and says, Rajiv ji, congratulations, welcome to Dallas. On behalf of all the Muslim community, I want to thank you for your great statement about mutual respect, and I tell you, we Muslims really believe in mutual respect also. Okay? Very good. So you see, this is where most Hindus would not take it further. You have to push it further. So I said, I'm very glad that you respect me, and I'll explain what all my faith entails that you are respecting. And I mentioned all the things that they are banned from doing. So I said, I'm very glad that you respect me. So let me explain that my faith, I do worship images. We believe in karma and reincarnation, not eternal paradise or hell after one birth. And the divine can be also worshipped as feminine. So she hung up. You see, I had to call her bluff. So this is the point, the tradition of mutual respect. I always tell when I'm arguing with theologians from Christianity and Jesuits, which I'm doing all the time. Hindus are afraid of doing this, but I have enough pull paksha on them, I can do it. So when they say, when we are talking about how open-minded they are, this and that, I always make offers which they can't accept. This is a strategy. You make an offer which is very equal. I'm doing this for you. I'm giving you $20. You give me $20. Now you can't say no to that, right? So I say these kind of offers. So I say, for example, I'll get you a Hindu community and a temple where we'll have a quid pro quo, reciprocal relationship with your church. We will install Jesus as an Ishta Devata, and in your church you will install our deities as divine. Will you do that? No way. Now, I can go on, but to save time, I'll just refer you. You go to my website of this book, www.beingdifferentbook.com, beingdifferentbook.com. One of the tabs is called videos. When you click videos, there are two groups. One is academic events and the other is public square, non-academic events. In the public square, one of the videos is with my 1.5 hour discussion with Mark Tully. Mark Tully is a famous BBC correspondent, Anglican church member, but loves India, loves Hinduism, lives in India, very great fan of Indian culture, dharma, all that. It's a 1.5 hour discussion with Mark Tully, and he's such a broad-minded guy. But the purpose of the discussion is for me to show to you, the viewers, that even a guy like that can only go so far. But there's an edge. He starts out by saying, great book, love it, but I don't like the fact that you are wanting us to be different. We should be same. So I say, okay, let's be same on my terms. You can be same as me. He sort of doesn't quite know what I'm saying. I'm saying, if you mean I have to be same as you, then you are converting me. But you can be same as me. I have no problem. So for example, let's say our deities and Jesus both are different forms of the same ultimate. That would be nice. So if a temple is willing to install Jesus, is the church willing to install our deities? And he said, well, that will be a problem because, then we'll be accused of polytheism. I said, okay, then you can't be the same. What are you talking about? Then I go on, and then he again says, yeah, but, again we're talking about difference, we talk about being same. So I say, okay, we have a principle of reincarnation and karma. So you accept that? Do you accept that? And he says, that will have some problems. Yeah, my church is not going to. So I go on explaining a difference. He can't accept our point of view. He goes on coming back to let's be same. And then I tell him let's be same on my terms. And here is another difference. And then he can't accept that difference. And we go on for 1.5 hours. I really would like you to please watch that, because that is the cutting edge of how to answer, how to talk with somebody who's being so nice, very decent gentleman, thorough, good guy. I love him as a friend. And it's not his fault, because he's as broad-minded as his church membership allows him to be. And he can't be out of line with his church. It's a congregational group organization, not an individual organization, membership-oriented. You can be in violation, you can be thrown out, all that stuff. So it's not the fault of the Christians, this is the group they are in. So when we are talking about multiculturalism, I'm telling you that the multiculturalism of Christianity goes only so far. It allows you to have tolerance. It allows you to be the same on their terms. It allows you to get digested ultimately. And the multiculturalism of the secularism and the Enlightenment tradition of the West is denial of the spirituality as we understand it. So those multiculturalisms are qualified. Hindu Dharma, without wanting to put restrictions on your belief, says you come as long as you leave us alone. As long as you leave us alone, you can do whatever you want. As long as you leave us alone. This is proven by thousands of years of history. India has an unprecedented history of multiculturalism, pluralism, and all these kind of things, unparalleled anywhere in the world. And Western Universalism has an unparalleled world history of conquest, digestion, oppression, making others like them, and so on. And I don't think you can argue that this is all both the same in this respect.